What if your ancient ancestry is hidden in your eye colour? From hunter-gatherers exploring the dark forests of Europe to the seafaring expansions of the Vikings, here is what your eye colour reveals about the ancient lineages you carry, from brown eyes to blue, grey to hazel. But first up is green eyes. Now if you have green eyes, you possess the rarest major eye colour in the world, shared by a mere 2% of the global population. And if you look at this table, you can see how common this eye colour is in parts of northwestern and northern Europe. They are especially common in regions connected to both Celtic and Norse ancestry, including Ireland, Scotland, Iceland, and parts of Scandinavia. We know as well that the Norse Gaels of Ireland and Scotland were a blend of Scandinavian and Celtic ancestry. And from my own anecdotal experience, I have met quite a lot of people with green eyes who have Norse Gael surnames like MacLeod for instance. And let me know if you have green eyes in the comments below and what your eye colour and ancestry is in general. Now green eyes are thought to have emerged in prehistoric Europe. While scientists cannot identify the first green-eyed person, the genetic foundations for lighter eye colours were already present among some of Europe's Mesolithic hunter-gatherers more than 8,000 years ago. We know that Western hunter-gatherers carried some of the earliest light eye variants in Europe. Then there was the introduction of farming populations from Anatolia who mainly had brown eyes, with later Bronze Age steppe peoples adding new layers of ancestry. Yet again, they mainly had brown eyes. And over thousands of years, those populations blended, creating the range of European eye colours we see today, including green. And from a genetic perspective, green eyes represent a perfect middle ground. They occur when the iris contains a low to moderate amount of brown melanin, paired with a high concentration of the yellowish light brown pigment called lipochrome. When the structural blue scattering of the clear stroma mixes with this yellowish layer, the human eye perceives it as a vivid green. So if you have green eyes, your DNA likely harbours a strong connection to the ancient Atlantic facade in northwestern Europe, echoing the complex mixing of ancient European ancestors, Celtic tribes, and Norse warriors, although not exclusively, of course. Now next up is brown eyes, the most popular eye colour in the world, found in 70 to 80% of people. If your eyes are brown, you carry the foundational baseline of the human species. As for hundreds of thousands of years, to be human was to have brown eyes. And this wasn't an aesthetic coincidence. From an evolutionary standpoint, it was a critical survival mechanism, as brown eyes have the highest levels of melanin of any eye colour. In equatorial environments, high levels of melanin served as a crucial evolutionary shield. They absorb damaging ultraviolet radiation from the intense sun and drastically reduce glare, protecting the delicate internal structures of the eye from long-term degradation. Today, they are most common in Asia and Africa, as you can see in this table. In Europe, brown eyes are especially common around the Mediterranean, including parts of Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and the Balkans. This is partly because these regions retain a higher proportion of ancestry from Europe's early Neolithic farmers, who mostly had brown eyes. Climate could also play the role here. Now third on the list is blue eyes, the second most common eye colour in the world, found in around 8 to 10% of people. And what people don't realise is that blue eyes actually represent one of the most dramatic evolutionary changes in human appearance, as there was a time when we think no human on Earth had blue eyes. Then a genetic change arose in an ancient Eurasian population, creating an entirely new eye colour that would eventually spread across much of Europe. Now genetic research shows that most blue-eyed individuals carry a variation near the HER2/OCA2 genes, which reduces pigment in the iris. And one of the most remarkable discoveries comes from southern Italy, where DNA from a child who lived around 17,000 years ago indicates the individual likely had blue eyes, one of the oldest people we know with this mutation. Now the strongest ancestral connection to blue eyes is Europe's ancient hunter-gatherers, particularly the population known as Western hunter-gatherers. These people were Europe's indigenous hunter-gatherer population, living from the end of the last ice age until the spread of farming around 8,000 to 5,000 years ago. Ancient genomes from individuals such as the Labrana in Spain and Cheddarman in Britain indicate that blue eyes were already extremely common among these populations. In fact, most Western hunter-gatherers that have been studied are predicted to have had lighter coloured eyes in general, usually blue or blue-green, making light eyes one of the most distinctive traits associated with this ancient European population. Lighter eyes were also very common amongst later European groups, of course, such as Celtic, Norse and Germanic peoples, and obviously associated with European ancestry in general, but the link with Europe goes way back thousands of years to early hunter-gatherer groups. Now, if you look at this table, you can see the breakdown of blue eyes around the world, and you can see how common they are in the Baltic states and parts of northern Europe today, including parts of Scandinavia, Finland, Estonia, Iceland, Ireland and Scotland. Because brown eyes were the standard and blue eyes were the change, it is thought that everyone who has blue eyes today ultimately descends from a single ancient blue-eyed individual, with climate and sexual attractiveness helping to increase this trait's frequency over time as well. Next up is hazel eyes, one of the most visually dynamic traits in human genetics, found in around 5% of people. They tell a story of intense cultural contact, trade, and the mixing of ancient global populations. Now, hazel eyes are often described as a chameleon-like trait, seemingly shifting colour depending on lighting and mood. This occurs because hazel eyes feature an uneven distribution of melanin. Typically, there is a moderate amount of brown pigment concentrated in the ring around the pupil, which gradually fades out into shades of green, gold and light brown toward the outer edge of the iris. When it comes to ancestry, hazel eyes are often linked to populations where brown-eyed and lighter-eyed ancestry has overlapped for thousands of years. They are found in parts of Europe, the Mediterranean, West Asia, the Caucasus, North Africa, parts of the Middle East and Central Asia. In a European context, hazel eyes are most common in Iberia, a region that has had many populations with light and dark eyes mixing for millennia. Western hunter-gatherers had a strong presence here in ancient times, for instance, and Iberia has served as a crossroads of Europe at different times since then. This included having some North African admixture during the Al-Andalus period, as well as Germanic and Celtic movements during various periods as well, who had lighter features of course. Next up is grey eyes, one of the rarest eye colours in the world at around 3% of the population. Now, for a long time, grey eyes were simply categorised as a variation of blue. However, modern genetic and structural analysis reveals that grey eyes are a distinct and fascinating phenotype with their own unique history. Like blue eyes, grey eyes have minimal melanin in the iris, meaning they are very sensitive to light. The crucial difference is that grey eyes possess larger deposits of collagen throughout the stromal layer, which scatters light differently to blue. And from an ancestral perspective, grey eyes are heavily anchored in northern and eastern Europe, as you can see in this breakdown. This phenotype is strongly linked to the ancient Baltic and Slavic lineages, as well as the eastern expansions of the Vikings. While the Western and Norse tribes sailed towards Britain and Ireland, the Eastern and Swedish Vikings, often known as Varangians or the Rus, navigated southward, along the vast river systems of Eastern Europe, establishing modern trade routes and settlements throughout modern-day Ukraine, Belarus and Western Russia. If your eyes are grey then, your ancestors likely lived in these cold, low UV regions of the far north and into the east, where unique structural variations in optical collagen thrived over millennia, and there may even be a Viking link in there as well. Finally, we have amber eyes, found in around 5% of people. Unlike the seemingly shifting nature of hazel, amber eyes tend to look more consistent. They display a solid, striking yellowish copper or coppery gold hue. They are caused by relatively low levels of dark eumelanin combined with a greater presence of yellowish golden pigments within the iris, producing their distinctive copper or golden appearance. Now, amber eyes speak to a rich history of admixture, the blending of previously isolated populations. And if you look at this breakdown, you can see that amber eyes are most often associated with populations from southern Europe, the Balkans, the Caucasus, Anatolia, Latin America, and parts of Western and Central Asia, especially parts of the Silk Road corridors. Their distribution likely reflects thousands of years of migration and mixing between different peoples, from European to Near Eastern, steppe to native peoples. So if you have amber eyes, your DNA reflects this vibrant history of connection, often seen elevated in regions that have long served as crossroads between peoples of different pigmentation. So your eye colour can actually give you a lot of clues to your ancestry. Yet there are only one part of the story. Surnames and DNA are other factors. But what are the Scottish clans of Viking origin? Well, to find out, please click here. Thanks for watching, please subscribe and hit the bell, and let me know your eye colour and ancestry in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.